If you find the thought of looking at the numbers in your business stressful and overwhelming and feel like it would be amazing to feel clarity and ease instead, contact Sarah Finns, finance coach and retired CPA. Through her program, Easy Business Bookkeeping, you can learn to manage your business finances in only minutes each week. With Easy Business Bookkeeping, you will get the tools and support you need to finally gain clarity with your finances so you can grow your business and your impact. Learn more at www.sarahfinns.com/self-paced. But yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, just kind of say who you are, say what you do, just kind of preface the conversation, and we'll dive into it.
Well, my name is George V. Gonzalez. I am a published author. I'm a real estate agent. I'm an inventor and also a public speaker. My family migrated from Mexico back in World War II. I am the one of six siblings, and we are actually the firstborn generation here.
Okay. So what is it that you do as far as your, I know you said you're a speaker. Did you say author also?
Yeah, I'm a published author. Yes.
Okay. So what are some things that you focus on as far as that goes, as far as the speaking, as far as the, I don't even think I realized that you wrote a book. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So in my book, I actually talk about my real estate business. I talk about my invention, and then of course I talk about the journey. So when I'm on stage and I'm talking to people on podcasts, I mean I talk about the things that I intertwine together. The real estate pays the bills, it funds my projects. The book is the platform that talks about everything. So when I am on stage, when I'm on podcast, I do talk about real estate, the investing, the motivation, inspiration. So I'm using the book as a platform.
Okay. Um, is this something that you just kind of you're just passionate about? You just kind of picked this up one day and said, "Hey, I'm really passionate about this thing." How did this all come about?
Which part?
I guess the book and the speaking. I guess all of it really.
So when I was very young, like my early teens,
Mm-hmm.
I've always had like this knowing and this feeling that I was special, that my life had purpose. But because of course I was young, I mean I hadn't even lived life yet.
Right.
So, but I had faith that as time progressed, life would expose the things that needed to expose to show me what I was meant to do here.
Right.
And so I've always been motivating, inspiring people and whatnot. I was in warehouse distribution and logistics for 20 years. I had a 24-hour operation. I've had about 260 people working for me. So I was really always in front of my team, my
Mm-hmm.
people. And so I always felt like I was on stage in front of them,
Right.
mentoring and whatnot and showing them this is the task that needs to be completed. This is for the reason. So I've always had those leadership skills. But it wasn't until 2021 during the pandemic that I was actually called to write the book, that I was able to bring all these things together in the book. And I started like offering my book for free on my social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually invited to a couple of universities. I was posting that videos. I did some shorts, and then I was invited to more podcasts. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is what I'm being called to do. This
Mm-hmm.
is it. This is the time. So the book really solidified my purpose and my calling, and it exposed it to me at that point.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really powerful way to describe that, because sometimes you hear people say like, well, I wanted to do this thing, or I'm just passionate about this, but when a person says that they feel they were called to do something, that's a really powerful way to put that, because I can just imagine the the sense of duty and responsibility that comes with that. That's a very deep thing to say that you were called, because I kind of feel maybe something similar. People have asked me before, like, how did you get into entrepreneurship? How did you, become an entrepreneur? And I just felt, I always say, I felt like I was supposed to be doing something more than what I was doing. It's just a thing that you feel like you're supposed to do. Um, and then also too, I guess the other side of that is that's kind of a big thing to live up to with yourself. If you feel like you're called to do that, you're called to do this thing. It's almost, I guess maybe from the outside looking in, maybe it's not, I don't know. It just maybe it seems like it would be intimidating a little bit.
It
But
could, I think it could be a little intimidated if you felt that you weren't worthy of it.
Hmm.
But for those of us that have gone through some things and we do feel that we've earned something better than we currently have, and then all of a sudden these things start happening, and then you feel, wait a minute, I'm being called to do this.
Hmm.
A lot of us now feel that, wait a minute, I've earned this calling. I've earned the ability and the access to be able to do these things now. Like somebody tells you, invites you on stage, invites you on a podcast, or wants to even talk to you, you've earned that because of your journey, your struggles, your successes. And success is not just a financial
Hmm.
success, it's more about overcoming something. And that
Right.
somebody feels that that story is worthy of diving deep into that story. That is really what like I said, we've earned that.
Hmm.
And that's what really allows us to accept that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You put it that way. Because I think that is a heavy thing when we feel this talk about this sense of purpose, and I've talked about this before. I think most of us have this idea that a sense of purpose is going to be something that's going to just be a breeze for us. It's going to be easy, but it's probably not going to be that. But I think you need that bigger motivation, whatever that is, to push you when those times get difficult. Because I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but like people say that, when it comes to a career or something, you should pursue something you're passionate about or something that you enjoy or that kind of thing. But I think the thing is, if that's your purpose on pursuing something, then when it gets tough, when it gets difficult, it's going to be hard to keep going with it. But if you feel like it's something you're supposed to do, if you feel like it's a calling, if you feel like it's your purpose, that's gonna motivate you when you really, are at your lowest as far as pushing through the thing and making it happen. I That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, when you first start off in life and in the journey when you're young, we do things that we don't want to do.
Hmm.
We might get a job that it needs to pay the bills, and when you start having a family, like these are necessities, these are musts that you have to do.
Hmm.
And but what we don't realize is that these things that we're doing because we have to do them, it's the foundation. Not realizing that we're going to utilize this relatable experience and relatable knowledge and journey going forward, and at some point that is going to become useful. Like for me, being in warehouse distribution logistics and management for 20 plus years, that was usable to my leadership skills today, where I'm on stage and I'm talking to people, that I speak with so much confidence because I only talk about the things that I know
Hmm.
and the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm an expert at. I don't talk
Right.
about things that I don't know and don't understand. I don't do that because if I do that, I'm gonna trip over myself because I'm trying to figure things out on the whim, which is
Hmm.
that's never a good thing. But so I talk about the things that my experiences, the things that I grew up and raised in, and like in my previous careers and the things that I picked up there. Those are the things that I talk about. My leadership skills, warehouse distribution, logistics. I talk about real estate. I talk about speaking. I talk about motivating, inspiring people. Because I've been motivating, inspiring people since way into my early teens. Because I've always had like younger people come to me and ask me, George, I'm kind of going through this, and like, what do you think? And I mean, I'm just experiencing life at the same time, but because
Right.
I got a couple of years over them, they feel like, you know what, let me ask them. And the people that I meet now is like, I'll meet, sometimes it's young people, sometimes it's older people, but I've gone through some things myself, and
Hmm.
I'm exiting them, and they're being barely getting in it. So they're gonna go through that journey. So they're like, George, you know what? I'm going through this, and it feels like I'm gonna be here for a while. How did you cope with this, and how did you handle this? And so that was the reason why I went through those things, to be
Mm.
able to help these individuals. And sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's a stranger somewhere. I might go to a store or a restaurant, and and some of us have this sense of like, I really feel like this person is going through something. So
Mm.
you're like extra polite to them because it's almost like you see their face, uh, the way their face is and the way their eyes is. It's almost like you see into their soul. I'm like, no, this person's going through something. So you'll be like extra nice. You ask them, so how's your day going? Did you have a great week this week? And then all of a sudden you'll get them off guard,
Hmm.
and they might share some things with you, And then you'll be able to say, you know what, it's going to be okay. I just got my ass kicked earlier this week, and you know what, look at me now. I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm living life. Life is beautiful. So you never know where these certain things are going to take you next.
Right.
So we're able to bring these experiences forward.
You mentioned something about talking to people who are kind of in a similar situation in which you were, or you're on the exiting side of it or on the back end side of it or whatever. And I think that's important. I think having a person there that knows the situation is I mean, that's everything. Having a person that can relate to that. You mentioned something about talking at universities, and I know you said talking about at your previous job, the warehouse. Is there a certain sort of I guess maybe audience that you directly work with or speak to?
So I'm being called to motivate and inspire the next generation, because
Okay.
there's a huge hunger
Mm-hmm.
for something more than what the young kids are living through. They're trying to figure out life,
Mm-hmm.
but they know that school is not going to teach them that. So these people, these students, these young adults, and some young teenagers now, they know that someone has more that they can
Mm-hmm.
share, because it's not happening in school, and it hasn't happened in school for a very long time.
Yep.
So when we get in front of them and we talk about our life experiences, and they're able to relate to some of these things, we're able to bring them into a conversation. So now it sparks curiosity, and say,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, George just said something that I'm living through, or that I just exited, or whatever the case would be, but I don't know how to reinvent myself from this point. How do I go in my life going forward? I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to pivot. So, and when I say the word reinventing, and I explain that word, that reinventing is bringing your relatable experience from your past,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's career, job, school. Now you're going to go into the real world. That's reinventing, but you're not going to be reinventing from scratch. You're going to bring everything that's relatable into this new career, into this new journey, this new path, this new entrepreneurship, this new experience. You're
Mm-hmm.
bringing something forward. And that's what a lot of kids are missing, that, oh my God, I got to start all over again. I don't know where to start. Well, first of all, your last 12, 14, 16 years of school, there's something there that you can bring.
Right.
Your part-time gigs that you had, you can bring something forward. Working with your mom and dad maybe on a part-time basis, because maybe they had a business, you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's some relatable things you can bring. Like I started working when I was 10, 12 years old, during school breaks. My family used to work in the farms, farm workers, strawberry and lemon orchards. And me and my brother used to go with my mom and dad to work on the fields with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what hard work ethic is. I know what that feels like, because I was physically doing that with my parents. So that's stuff that I bring forward. So when somebody tells me, "Oh my God, George, you work too much. You got all these things going. You're trying to build this and stuff like that. Isn't that too much for you?" It's like, you don't understand where I started.
Right.
You don't understand my first experience of work. That was hard work. This isn't. This is more passion driven work. It's
Mm-hmm.
much easier.
Yeah. So do you find that these people that you speak to, they're probably hearing this or something like this for the first time, you know, with these, I guess it would be somewhere around age 15 to 20, somewhere in that ballpark.
It's between the people that my audience, like a social media stuff like that, my platforms, and people that I speak in front of. They're in their mid, probably between 17
Mm-hmm.
and then 25,
Okay.
graduating high school. And then I've also gone to, of course, entrepreneur groups as well too in the community. I spoke in front of those. So there's really not a particular age, but I'm being called to motivate and inspire the next generation, and also the people that are looking to reinvent themselves, that are looking to pick themselves up after tragedy, adversity, and really are trying to figure their life out. Like midlife crisis is a huge thing for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is midlife crisis? What? at your midlife, you go through a crisis of identity. It's like, what am I really here for?
Right.
And they're still trying to figure it out. So I'm telling people, asking them like, okay, what are you good at? What are you really passionate about?
Hmm.
And if money was not an option, what would you want to do for the rest of your life? Let's start there, you know?
Right. So if you had to, this is probably going to be a very broad question, but and you could just if you want to pin like if you want to answer to each specific group, age group, or life area or whatever, uh, what would you say is like a very maybe some of the most common problems with it can be like I said any age group any area of life whether it's a student entrepreneur midlife crisis whatever like what are some common things that these people are experiencing with this transition? I know we talked about um if they're hearing this for the first time or something like this for the first time, I guess the knowledge that this is even a thing to begin with, but like what are some other common issues that you see that are kind of holding these people back and kind of keeping these people in this I don't know, for lack of a better word, this frame, I guess, because we talked about reinventing, we talked about and I guess that's a transition for like the students. That's like a major, first of all, that age, whether you go to college or not, is a major transition in your life to begin with. Whether you're going from high school or straight into the workforce into college or whatever, and there's already a lot happening there. Um, so just any sort of, I guess, area that you kind of want to focus on. What are some of these things that people really are struggling with in this specific area? When it comes to, well, I don't want to
Yeah.
insinuate. I guess I'll give it over to you.
So when I'm in front of people,
Hmm.
I share the message of my book, which is the title of my book. It's Answer the Call. And
Mm.
Answer the Call is about finding your gifts, your talents, and pursuing your life's purpose. I've had people tell me, George, I don't believe I have a gift. I don't believe I have a talent. I definitely don't believe I have a life purpose. So then I start asking them questions. I start digging in, and I ask them, okay, so what makes you the happiest? What do you do? What do you like to do that makes you the happiest? And then they'll say something. Okay. Now, if you're doing something, what is something that you're really good at and you really love to do? Well, okay, this is it. Okay. If money was not an option, what would you not mind doing for like the rest of your life? Because it's fulfilling. If it really fulfills you, it gives you joy. It gives you like this fuzzy feeling.
Hmm.
And when I ask them these three questions, it's almost like they're allowing themselves permission to go deep within themselves and start analyzing the things like, okay, well, when I used to do this, I was extremely happy. When I used to work at this job and I was working around these type of people, that used to make me happy.
Hmm.
And I've always said that if I was ever rich, if I ever won the lottery, this is what I wanted to do. So when I bring those things together and they're like, George, there's no way. I was like, there's no way what? There's no way that by you just saying that, I might have exposed within myself my gifts, my talents, and my life's purpose. It can't
Hmm.
be that easy. Well, in reality, it is that easy because there's a lot of people, and society has made us believe that a hobby is just a hobby. But a hobby is a gift and a hobby is a talent. It
Hmm.
only becomes a life purpose if you actually put it out there and you share it and you serve others with it, whether it's a product or a service. Some people are good at music and cartooning and drawing and whatnot. Some people are good in sports. Some people are good at talking and motivating, inspiring people. Some people can touch you and you can heal just by that because all the love that this individual carries.
Hmm.
But they've never heard it that way. And this is why I was called to write my book during the pandemic. And this is why when I wrote my book and I was going to call my book American Inventor because I'm an inventor, I heard this whisper. And that whisper told me, answer the call. And I heard it a second time. And then I said it out loud when I was on the phone with a publishing company. And they said, George, what is that? That's the name of the book. Where did you get that from? It was just whispered to me. So I was going to say American Inventor. That was more self serving, like kudos to me, American Inventor, right?
Hmm.
But God had a different plan. God said, answer the call. And then a couple of weeks later, that message came to me that answer the call was about finding your gifts, your talents, and pursuing your life's purpose. So that's the message is answer the call. Everybody has to answer their own calling and their own life and go deep within themselves and find out what are my gifts, what are my talents, and what is my life purpose. Each individual person. So this is why I go in front of people, and this is the message that I share with people. And then of course I talk about my book and the layers of the book, the lessons in it. And that's just for me to be relatable to the audience and bring them into this conversation for them to get the message.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how I tackle those things. And the book is about my presentation is about foundation. It's about influence. It's about the journey, struggles, reinventing yourself, faith, and success. That's it. Those are the things that I bring in to talk about the message of Answer the Call, about finding your gifts and talents and pursuing your life's purpose. So that's how I tackle that particular subject.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot there, man. So I would imagine if you had this conversation with somebody, I would imagine that a good portion of them, if not the majority, well, probably the majority of them, if not almost all of them, they have that kind of like what we were talking about earlier. They have this idea that if there's this thing they're supposed to do, this calling, this purpose, it's almost like I think a lot of people, we feel like we're not up to the level of person we need to be for that, which I think is part of the calling. You know, we have to become the person that can do these things. But, and this is kind of what I was asking you earlier about the intimidation thing. Do you find that a lot of people, when they hear this for the first time, or do they, I'm sure they get intimidated by this. You know, they say that, oh, well, I have this, when we talk about answer the call, what it seems like the call is for me is something that's way too big for my ability. You know, that like this thing, whatever I have in my mind, XYZ, they feel like they can't achieve that. Is that, do you find that often? Is that like a common reaction?
No,
Because,
yeah,
well, I was just going to say, I guess a better way to look at this is like, you know, I think a lot of us have dreams, but then we settle for something that's more realistic, you know,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. What happens is that, and I was guilty of this too. When on my early teens, like I mentioned earlier, that I felt like I was special and I felt like there was a huge calling on my life, but I hadn't lived life yet. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I mean, of course, that's overwhelming. I mean, like, well, first of all, how is that even possible? But I truly believe that because I've met several people like this, that we always know that we are uh we are all being called for something. We just don't know what that look like because we haven't even grown into the individual that we're supposed to be to
Mm.
fulfill it. Right now, if I hadn't wrote in my book yet, I wouldn't feel that I was ready for it either. To be honest with you,
Right.
yes, I became an inventor. Yes, I became a real estate agent. Yes, I became an award-winning agent. Yes, I became a manager in a career that was difficult to navigate through, but I was able to be able to be there for 20 plus years in management. A little guy like me, I dealt with discrimination a lot in my career, but still be able to reach that level. So there was definitely pride for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't feel that the things that I had accomplished were still worthy of a calling. I didn't feel that I was ready for that yet. And but when I was called to write the book and I put everything in the book, I was like, wait a minute, I am worthy of it
Mm-hmm.
because I've achieved all these things, and now I'm being allowed and granted the ability to bring them all together into this book and use this book as the similar to when you graduate from a major university and say, well, I have an MBA in this and that. So that's like, okay, kudos to me, right? Okay, this
Mm-hmm.
guy's done some stuff. And for me, the book was like, because I didn't believe that I was ready for it, God said, we're gonna put it all in a book, and I'm gonna show you that you've created a lot of things already. And yes, you are ready to motivate and inspire the next generation and anyone that's looking to reinvent themselves, anyone that's gone through adversity is trying to really, you know, uh, go through a new path forward. You're ready for that. And I'm gonna prove that to you. And even when I wrote the book and it was done and it became an Amazon bestseller, I'm like, oh my God, I really did do this.
Mm-hmm.
I really am a published author. It became a bestseller, and holy crap, I am an inventor. I'm a successful real estate agent, and I was a successful manager in my field. So it does happen. So I'm not saying that everybody's going to write a book, but what I'm saying is that we have to believe in ourselves that we are worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's people, and it's funny because you'll meet someone that says, well, excuse me, so what do you do? Oh, well, I'm a school teacher and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Well, being a school teacher, that's an honorable thing too, because you're teaching us how to read and write
Right.
and comprehend certain things, right? Mathematical equations and whatnot. That's an accomplishment. So why would we think that we wouldn't be able to motivate and inspire other people that want to be school teachers or not NFL players, but athletes? Even
Mm-hmm.
though you're just graduating from college, maybe you haven't even, but you're an amazing player. That doesn't mean that you can't go motivate, inspire the high school people to be inspired to go into, college ball of some sort. You don't have to wait to be you're an NFL player. And the reason I say this is because I've always wanted to motivate and inspire people, but I didn't feel I was ready for it yet.
Hmm.
But then when I wrote the book, I realized, yes, I have been ready, and I have been ready for a very, very long time. Just like the people used to gravitate to me and ask me for advice. There's a reason
Mm-hmm.
why they did that. And I had to put myself in front of more people, but I didn't do that because I had imposter syndrome. And that's a
Hmm.
real thing. People feel that
Yep.
we're imposters, that we're not ready for it yet. So believe in yourself more and have faith that you are already ready. If you're getting that nudge to do something, listen to it because that's that nudge that's telling you, yes, you are ready for it.
Yeah, I love that, man, because I think, I think a lot of times we wait for the right time, for the perfect time to do something. And there's a saying that says if you have to sink or swim, you'll figure out how to swim really quick. You know, and I think that if you when you feel that about that feeling of that you don't want to jump in, I think that is the exact time that you jump in. I think that's when you're supposed to jump in. Um, Something else you were touching on too, and I don't know if this is kind of what I'm hearing when you say this. It reminds me of this philosophy I have, which is, you have to become the person that you have a goal or a dream, whatever this is. You have to become that person. I don't mean attain that thing. I mean, you have to become the person who does that. It's easy for a lot of people to say they want their own business or they want to be the CEO of their own company, but are you a CEO? Are you doing the things that a CEO is doing? Because a lot of CEOs out there are working, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Are you the person that's going to do that? Are you the person that can lead people? Are you the person that can go out and make sales? And I think that it's just important to become this person because yes, we have this dream or this goal or whatever this thing is we wanted to attain, but you have to be the person who can get that. It's not going to just fall. Working for the thing and working towards it and putting in the effort and the degree or whatever it is, that's one thing. But being the person who can just handle that responsibility is a whole nother thing. And I think that's just something that's so important because it's like it's easy for us to look at the end goal, look at the where we want to be and it's easy for us to say that, but then how we get there, sometimes we get mixed up on that. And I think one of the ways you get there is being the person who can be that, because the path that you take might change. If you have it's never going to be a straight path, and the way you think it's going to happen is probably not going to is not how it's going to be. But if you're dedicated to the end goal, to where you want to be, the path might change, and that's okay. But also, if you're dedicated to the end goal and you're simultaneously dedicated to the person that can, the next step of the person of the evolution of the person that has that, that's how we stay on track. And I don't know, maybe I was kind of misheard you or misunderstood you, but that's what I was picking up when you were saying about be like having this thing and being this taking on this role and this responsibility. I think that's one of the biggest ways we do that, is become the person that has the thing that we want to have, the goal or the career, whatever it is.
I when I had my accident, I was 39 years old. I was I was in an industry for 20 plus years, and I had an accident. I wasn't expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
It caught me off guard. Now, but what that did do for me is that it brought me so deep into depression, heavily medicated, suicidal thoughts. So I had to go through that phase and journey a part of my life so I can know what it feels like and know what it looks like.
Hmm.
So now when I'm on stage and I'm talking to young people that they're in a dark place, they're having suicidal thoughts, they're in depression, I don't have to say, I can just imagine what you're going through. No, I can say, I know what you're going through because I lived that too. And as you can see me here in front of you, strong the way I am, confident, and that I pull myself out, that only means that you can do it too.
Hmm.
Because me and you, we're not much different. I just happen to have maybe more years over you than you do. But there's a reason why you went through that. What if your experience and this painful part of your life, you're meant to save someone else?
Hmm.
Whether it's a family member, a friend, or maybe even a complete stranger someday. We don't know that. So the journey, the process, it molds us, it forges a new version of us every single day. Because I'm not the same person that I was when I was 39, when I had that
Right.
accident. Now, a lot of the things I'm re-tapping back into to that level of where I was at, confidence and stuff like that, and energy level. I'm being back an individual, but I'm not the same individual because
Hmm.
I've was able to garnish so many experiences from that experience of being injured.
Right.
And when somebody right now tells me, "Oh my God, George, it's so cold, my body hurts," it's like, I know what you feel like. Like, what do you mean? It's like, I also have a back injury. I got herniated discs in my body. I have broken bones in my body. So yes, the cold weather affects me too. But this is how I cope with it, and this is how I self-medicate those parts of me. So
Hmm.
I've never tried that before. It's like, maybe this is something you should look into. So there's a reason why we've experienced certain things in our journey, because God knew that some of us are so loving and giving, and also some of us have really big mouths that life ain't gonna shut us up, and He wants us to share these things with other people. So for that reason, I accept that. And for that reason, I accept the journey that I went through, even though some of it was very, very painful.
Hmm.
Because now I'm able to speak from experience and not just through theory of saying, oh my God, I can just imagine. Or yeah, I read that in a book somewhere. No, no, I lived that.
Right. And I think an important thing too there is, when you were going through those things, did you have the you that you are to these people? Did you have that person that came to you and said, "Hey, I know what you're going through. I can relate to you," or did you just kind of deal with it other ways by yourself? And I'm kind of asking a rhetorical question here, but I'm saying that, that's important because I think a lot of times, it's especially somebody like in your situation who's been through these things and now you're kind of reaching back and helping somebody else. It makes a difference when, like you said, when you have yourself have experienced that, because like you can actually relate to this person and not just, oh, well, let me know if you need anything type thing. And I think that makes a difference because that means that you have what you needed when you were in in these people's situations, but you can give that to them maybe when you didn't have the same, I guess, luxury maybe.
And the reason I am the way I am and as passionate I am, and why I'm really transparent and open about my experiences and my journey is you're right. To answer your question, I didn't have somebody in my life to help me through these things.
Hmm.
I the only thing that I can hold on to was my faith. I believe that God was still protecting me, even though that I was going through these things. And even when I was going through that dark part of my life and I was depressed and whatnot, I was seeing like, and I was heavily medicated. I was seeing some things that I didn't believe that I was supposed to see. Because
Right.
I'm sure you've heard that a lot of people that are on medication, they see things. Like they see like black things, entities, and hear stuff and whatnot. And and I was seeing these things. But even in that dark place, I wasn't fearful. I wasn't in fear. I wasn't scared. I still felt like I was protected.
Hmm.
But I had to experience that though. So when I talk about those things, or like you said, I mean, they're relatable to these people, and now they can trust me because I just talked about something that's so intimate. in private that a lot of people don't talk about. And
Right.
that's why I'm able to make those connections with them.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And another reason for saying that too is I think it's important if somebody's in this situation, like these people that you're talking to, I think it's important to find somebody who has experienced this type of thing, to have that person for that be the person that they're talking to. Because it's easy for us to say, well, whatever, I see what you're going through. This is what I think you should do, whatever. But when we hear that, I think there's a certain part of us that like knows. I don't want to say that the person doesn't know what they're talking about because I'm sure they mean well, but it's different when it comes from a person who has been there. Um, so we're talking a lot about purpose here and what to do when you feel like your purpose is calling to you and answering this call. What about on the flip side of that? Because we hear a lot of people say, "Well, I don't know how to find my purpose. I don't know what my purpose in life is." Like, I can't. A lot of people say that they feel like they should do something, they just don't know what it is. They have a job maybe they're not satisfied with, or they have a career, or whatever. How would you recommend a person finds this sense of purpose? Because we're talking about answering the call if it's calling out to them, but what about the people who don't feel a call? What if they feel like they don't really know what their purpose is?
We've all heard the saying, ask and it shall be given.
Hmm.
Knock and the door shall be open. So we have to question things and we have to ask for things because God gave us free will. We all have free will, right?
Right.
So when you're ready, and sometimes I'm sick and tired about being sick and tired. We've all heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not until you sit down, I'll give you an example. I went to a speaking engagement in Long Beach University during the pandemic. And there was other speakers. I was the main speaker. There was other speakers there, and we sat at the same table. And after I spoke, I sat down, and there was a young lady there, probably in her closer to 30, mid 20s, 30, getting closer to 30. And she looked at me and she says, "You know what? I really admire you. You really admire me?" I said, "Yeah." Like, okay, well, I appreciate that, but is there a particular reason why you admire me? Well, you figured it out. You figured what your gift, your talent, your life's purpose is, and I don't believe I have one, and I don't know how to access that. And I asked her three questions. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? If money was not an option, what would you want to do for the rest of your life? And you should have seen the look in her eyes. She got a little emotional. She almost wanted to cry. And she said, "George, it can't be that easy." I go, "Yes, it is that easy."
Hmm.
What did you find out? I think I know now. You don't got to tell me, but I'm glad you now know. It was that easy. The
Hmm.
thing is that we don't know sometimes what to say or what to ask until someone guides us and like, oh my God, that's so easy. Same thing with prayer. A lot of people don't know how to pray, but once you
Mm-hmm.
hear you see like a powerful prayer, like, oh, I love this. This makes so much sense. Now you know what to pray about.
Right.
Same thing with the book. Let's just say Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Any kind of those amazing books. The 24 irrefutable laws of leadership. All these massive books. That when you read these books, you're like, I should know this. As a matter of fact, I do know this. But the fact that you don't practice it, that means you don't know it because you don't practice it. But once it stays either in your subconscious, your conscious or your subconscious mind, that's when you really start seeing things change.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to ask yourself, what am I good at? Through either meditation, through prayer, go to nature, whatever. And just ask yourself, what do I really love to do? What am I good at? And if money was not an option, what would I want to do for the rest of my life? And I can assure you and almost promise you that it will expose itself to you because your wish is my command.
Right.
You just ask permission to your inner being, call it your Holy Spirit, your inner self, whatever, God, our creator. You just asked it and gave it permission to give you what you just asked for. but it's not going to happen before that. That's the way that works. Same thing with the law of attraction, the secret. Same concept.
So that does sound unbelievably easy, but it also does make sense when you ask yourself that, because those are three very profound questions, and I feel like if you really want to know the answer to those questions, the answer, I don't want to say it will surprise you, but it is probably going to be, the answer is probably going to be to the same degree profound as the questions, and so this kind of leads us to the other thing that we were talking about too. This whether or not, when we get that answer, whether or not we have the self belief that says, okay, well, we can do these things. Because just because it might be something that we enjoy or that we like doing doesn't necessarily mean that we believe that we're capable of doing this thing. And I guess this kind of leads us into a core value situation. What are our values that we have about ourselves and the world around us? Because of course, the mindset that we have, the values that we have, the self-belief we have will determine and influence heavily what we do or do not do in our life. And so this is why, like somebody who has a message like you, which is a profound and very much needed message, but we also have to simultaneously have the conversation about, what we believe about ourselves, because whatever was going through this lady's mind, I mean, who knows what, but it sounds like it was something that she knew about for a while. It sounds like it was something that she was kind of, battling with the idea in her head for a while. But then it's like, okay, well, now we have the call, we have what we feel like is a sense of purpose. And now the obstacle is trying to believe in ourselves enough that we can attain this thing. I think is, and I mean, I'm just trying to, I guess what I'm trying to do here is like just lay a blueprint for this purpose thing, because I feel like I can't tell you how many people I've heard say this. Well, I just don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I should be doing in life. I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. I know I should be doing something else. But then the more we have this conversation, it just seems there's a lot of factors that go into this, as far as, I mean, the knowing is one thing. And then once we do know, like I said, the belief is a whole other thing. And then once we have the belief, putting it into practice is a whole separate thing. So I understand this is I'm asking a very big question. I'm asking for a very big blueprint here. But I'm just kind of thinking out loud, because I feel like this is something that, especially in the age that I think your typical audience is, that late teens, early 20s, and even later in life. I think this is a question that a lot of people, carry. Uh,
I
and I was just
I,
going to say too,
yeah.
I think it kind of contributes to, excuse me, you were talking about the midlife crisis earlier.
Mhm.
People have this identity thing. Well, it's like if you, and I don't know, I'm just kind of speculating here, but if you have a belief about yourself that you are a certain person or are not a certain person, I imagine at some point that's going to get to the point where you can no longer carry it, and then I don't know, maybe that's what triggers this midlife crisis. You're like, well, is this really who I am? Is this really what my life is? Like, I have this big dream and this big desire and this attraction to do this thing, but is this really who I am? I don't know. That might not be how a midlife crisis works. I'm just kind of speculating.
Yeah. So let's connect the word reinvention with what we discussed about the gift, talent, life, purpose. So once you figured it out, of that, you think, wait a minute, I think this is it here.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're about to reinvent yourself. You're about to start a new journey, because now you feel that you figured it out now. Now, what people need to understand also is that you're not starting from scratch, because there's no way that your previous life experiences are
Mm-hmm.
a waste of a journey. There's just no way. There's a reason why you went through the things that you've already went through. So you have to look at those experiences and bring in forward the relatable things that are useful for your
Mm.
new path forward with your now exposed gift, talent, and life's purpose. There's a reason why you went through that. So if I were to look back to all my life, all the way back, I can see how everything that I went through was useful to becoming who I've become, and
Mm-hmm.
has been useful for the stories that I talk about to help people cope with adversity, go through painful events, depression, suicidal thoughts, alcoholism, substance abuse, and stuff like that. because the
Hmm.
experiences that I went through. So there's nothing to go waste here. Now, you do have a choice what things you want to utilize and what things you want to talk about and what things you want to expose to other people as far as the personal, intimate things. Those are personal choices.
Hmm.
But the journey that you went through, you were supposed to go through that because there was a lot of things that you were supposed to use in your new path forward in the future when you finally figured it out. So it's not that, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. It's like you choose not to take some things with you, but that's a choice. Like for me, I made the choice. I'm going to bring everything that's useful and everything that's impactful and everything that's motivating and inspiring because I truly want to help people cope
Hmm.
with their things that they're going through and overcome them. So I'm going to bring everything. I'm going to put it on the table. I'm not going to discard anything because I don't believe in dead spaces and I don't believe in waste of anything.
Right.
If I went through the pain, you better believe I'm going to share it because I didn't go through the pain in vain. I didn't go through the
Exactly.
experience in vain either. I wasn't in warehouse distribution and logistics for 20 plus years in management, not to talk about that because I'm always looking at process and procedures to make things more efficient. So if I don't talk about those things, I'm doing a disservice to a potential client where they might be in that industry. And just because I don't talk about it, I can't help them make their departments better, their organization better, their infrastructure better. I would be doing them a disservice if I wouldn't talk about that. Same thing with the injury, same thing with the real estate, same thing with the invention, everything, even the betrayals of family. There's certain conversations that are going to uh, um, command certain things that you come out and share, certain conversations. So let's not be selfish and keep some things private
Hmm.
when we could have saved someone or helped somebody. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Oh, I got you 100%. And I think too, again, an important part of this is the mindset we have about it. Cause we can look at these things. I just feel like we can look at these things in our life and say, oh, well, this was a wasted experience. I felt this for nothing or whatever. But if you, like you're saying, if you look at it as if there's something that you can get out of that, if you tried something and you failed, that's not a failure if you were able to learn something from it. Um, and so I 100% agree with you on that. I think that, even if you feel like you're not living your purpose or you're not doing what you're supposed to do or whatever, the experiences you have in life up to that point, I 100% think that you can learn from them and you can take that with you to into your purpose or whatever it is. Because another thing that I say all the time too is the journey is the prize. It's not the destination that should be the prize. It's the journey that is the prize. It's the journey that is the experience. We go through these things and we go through this walk of life. I feel like, and it sounds so cliche, but it's something that I think it makes a lot of sense. Is that who we become while we are headed to where we want to go is what's more valuable than where we end up. You know, because you might think that you're going somewhere, that you're headed somewhere, that you want something in life, and when you get there, before you get there, whatever, you might realize that you want to do something else, and then you change directions. But who you are becoming along that path is something that you can take with you, regardless. Um, and so this kind of what I was talking about earlier about becoming the person who is, who has this life that you want to, becoming the person who is able to live this life that you want to live for yourself, with this goal or this achievement or whatever.
I think it's important to understand also what you just touched on that you get to the goal and you say, wait a minute, I thought it was going to be different. The thing
Hmm.
is that in that journey, you became a different person. So by the time you got to the finish line, you're no longer the same person you were when you first started. You're a complete different person.
Yep.
So it's that journey, it's that forging, it's that the creation and recreating of yourself. I
Hmm.
mean, if we're the same person today, in okay, January 1st is coming around the corner, 2024 is coming. If you're the same person January 1st, 2024, that you were with January 1st, 2023,
Hmm.
you missed the lesson
Yep.
because you're not supposed to be the same person. You're supposed to be stronger, wiser, smarter, and a few steps forward than you were back then in January 1st. So, and also, I love going on trips with people and going on drives with people, even if it's a short distance, because the conversations that you have in the car are just priceless.
Hmm.
You might go to, let's just say you go on a trip with your family to Disneyland or SeaWorld or whatever the case may be, to a theme park, whatever, skiing. But those conversations and those funny moments and intimate moments in that car are more precious than being in that trip, in that the theme park or the ski resort.
Yep.
It was those conversations, and that's how life is. It's that journey. That's what's important, and I think
Yep.
people need to understand that. You know, but yeah, we're not the same people. This is why people, like even the major successful people, Mark Cuban, right, bought a basketball team, went on Shark Tank.
Hmm.
Then he created this kind of like pharmaceutical hub to make medicine more cheaper. Now he just sold a greater part of his uh, of his basketball team. So it changes. So because he's becoming a different person, and I say Mark Cuban because I'm sure a lot of people know who Mark Cuban is. That's why I say Mark Cuban. But there's a lot of
Hmm.
other successful people that are in similar things, that they reach certain goals and then they change, and then they create nonprofits, and then now their goal now is to really make people, giving kids toys that they've never had and experiences that they've never experienced, feeding the homeless. It is getting that fulfillment of feeding the homeless. So it changes along the way, and that's perfectly fine because we're supposed to be different people.
I agree. I agree 100%. All right, let's take a quick break really quick, and then we'll start right back up. But let's just take a quick break just for a second here. Okay, so we were talking earlier. We were talking about. I think you said your audience is the generation coming up. That's one of your focuses on who you want to get this message to, and I think that's a pretty big thing because that's the next generation. So I turned 30 in April, and so I was born in '93. And so I remember thinking back, like, from '93 to 2003, I felt like there were so many changes in the world. And then from 2003 to 2013, there were so many changes. And now from 2013 to 2023, it seems like the world's just changing so quickly, and this next generation is coming up. It's just such a, uh, I don't want to say important because that implies that anyone else isn't important, but I think it's an important thing for them to, their how their what their mentality is, how they see the world, how they interact with the world. Um, I think I think that's going to influence a lot of what happens over the next few decades. And I think, like I said earlier, I think already that age, 17 to just say 25 or so, that's already a big age, and there's already a lot of things happening right there, and there's a lot of people um go through a lot of changes from that decade or whatever it is there, and so that's already a big. But you were saying that's kind of your main focus, not your main focus, but one of the focuses of your audience is that the next generation, and I think that's uh first of all, that's admirable because I think these people need a certain message, but I know you've already touched on this a little bit, but can you talk about what it is working with those people? I mean, like, I know we talked earlier about the mindset and the just trying to get these people to, I think what you were saying was at a certain point you used the word reinvention, and that's a really unique way to say that because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. Um, but just like, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on like working with the upcoming generation and kind of some of the things that I guess a condensed version, because we've talked about a good bit. I'm sure there's more that you could share. Like, what's something that you just try to work with these people on to just try to, a general message for these guys or girls?
My observation and opinion is, every new generation
Mm-hmm.
is more important and more special than the previous one,
Hmm.
right? That it not to take away from the previous generations, like my generation, my mom's generation, not to take away from them, But the fact is that the next generation, the new generation, they're in a very privileged position
Hmm.
because they will make decisions that will impact me and impact my mom's generation. My grandma's generation, my grandparents they've passed away already, so that generation is gone in my family. But my
Hmm.
mom's generation is still here. My generation is still here. But your generation, my daughter's generation, because my daughter's 25, so you're part of my daughter's generation. In that generation that I'm trying to make a difference with, because a lot of people in your generation didn't get exposed to these things because of their upbringing, the influences around them and stuff like that. Um, because my generation had a huge incarceration problem. My
Hmm.
generation, not my mom's generation, but it was my generation across the board. And your generation grew up, some of them without mom and without dad,
Right.
because also because of the drug in the drug problem and stuff like that, and the substance problem.
Hmm.
Also, my generation, because the previous generation handled it differently because they were only with tobacco and alcohol. The previous
Yep.
generation, my generation got exposed to everything, the ugly parts of all drugs and all types. Your generation got exposed to vaping and other things and whatnot, the creative ways. So it's important to make sure that we don't take away from the previous ones, but understand that the new generation now is going to be making decisions for me and everybody else. And then the next one after that will be making decisions for the rest of us. So
Hmm.
we have to make sure that we expose them to the right way of thinking, the right knowledge, the right wisdom, the proper direction. Because if not, they're going to making wrong decisions, uneducated decisions that are going to affect us,
Hmm.
the older generation. So, I mean, it's like the song that I think Michael Jackson did with a lot of artists was that the children were the future.
Hmm.
That's the reality. The children is the future. So every new generation, any new generation that comes, that is the future of
Right.
of humanity is the new generation. That's why for me it's so important because I also have younger nephews and nieces, and I see what they're exposed to and what they're not exposed to,
Hmm.
and how I raised my daughter and what I exposed her to, and there's a huge separation there. And then I meet family members and friends, their kids and stuff like that, their children, and I see what they're exposed to and the lack thereof. I'm like, oh my God, there's a huge disconnection here. This is just the immediate people that I am around with. And then you
Right.
go into the schools and then you ask people certain questions like, raise your hand if you ever heard of this. No one raises up their hand. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem.
Hmm.
If we don't face this issue now, it's going to become a huge problem because these people that we're able to reach into college university level also have younger brothers and sisters, which means they're not, not to say that they're not good big brothers or big sisters, but they're not able to pass down certain knowledge and wisdom to their siblings because they haven't been exposed to that yet.
Hmm.
Because once the older brother and sister gets exposed to certain things, it trickles down to the siblings too. So they're now all of a sudden they're wiser and smarter. Why? Because they got exposed to what the older sibling exposed them to. So
Right.
that's why I feel that I'm being called to do that, and I'm prepared, and I accept that purpose for myself and the calling for myself because I see the huge need for it. Because I
Hmm.
also know that school failed me at my age, and I see what kids are exposed to at school, and I'm like, this is a huge disservice to our next generation. You know,
Yep. And I think too, you touched on this. There's a lot of different factors in that. For like, so my parents' generation, what they experienced in school and how they experienced school was very different than how I experienced school, which is very different from how kids these days would experience school. And something that I think could really help us or hurt us, depends on how we use it, is the internet. This access of information and this spreading of information, because this is, I say this all the time, that we have so much information at our fingertips. It's just, it's on we, most of us have a phone, or if not a phone, some sort of internet, source of internet that we can go to get, whatever questions we want to have, whatever education is, whatever. I mean, YouTube is a huge, educator for a lot of people on different things. But when I say that the world's changing just in the last 3 decades, it's just changing so quickly, and there's so many different factors. Like, this generation has problems the last generation didn't have. The next generation will have problems this generation doesn't have. And there's so many different things. And there used to be a time when the whatever the family unit was, whatever that structure was where the information came from for the household. But now we have the internet, we have social media, we have, other people that we're getting our information from. And so there's just like, I can't imagine like how it's almost kind of hard to wrap your head around, like how different this is just in a 20 or 30 year or even a 10-year, difference. And so I guess where I'm going with this is that, I share your concern that this is a very important, thing to address, this upcoming generation, and how the mindset they have, what they do, what they choose to do, what they don't choose to do, how they choose to interact and affect and influence the world. And so, I think it's something that definitely we need to be aware of, because I don't think any of us can say we expect the world to be a certain way in 20 years, because it just changes. It's just changing so quickly. We don't know, um, and it's a big thing. I'm not going to say it's a problem, but it is something I think we need to be aware of, and address.
And I think it's our duty,
Mm-hmm.
to make life better for the people that are coming behind us.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard this before, that the elders, the ancestors and whatnot, they, like you said, they pass down certain things to us, family values, morals, and what's right and what's wrong. But it seems like there's a huge disconnect now, and there's a lot of things missing, because you got information from different directions, and that the outside information is overpowering the stuff at home.
Yep.
So that's becoming a problem too, because if they're getting the wrong information. Now, I always tell people, if you want to learn some stuff, go to YouTube, follow certain people on social media, people that you inspire to be like. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
there's anything negativity, anything that's evil, stay away from that stuff, right? But not everybody's telling the same story, the same thing. I'm saying it. Certain people that are like me are saying it. But how about the people that are not saying it? That at some point, those people, those people's grandkids are going to interact with my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a huge problem there. So
Right.
either I become part of the problem or part of the solution, and I choose to be part of the solution, where I'm doing my part to going outside of my own family and out of my own household, and hope to inspire and motivate other people, because I was given this journey and certain access to certain things, certain wisdom, certain life lessons that I feel that are valuable. And I tell people, take what makes sense to you and discard the rest. Take what's useful and throw away the rest. Only use what's useful, but also find other people that are positive minded, similar to where you want to be at, and listen to them. It'll be a collaboration of a bunch of us, and that's going to be who you are now. Like, I didn't just read one book. I've read hundreds of books to grab certain nuggets from different individuals.
Right.
There's somebody that I really admire humongously is Walt Disney. He created Disneyland. He filed for bankruptcy 4 times. Disneyland almost didn't happen. And then when I found out that his birthday is on my birthday, I was
Hmm.
like, wait a minute. No wonder I'm so creative. You know what I'm saying? So you have to find relatable things to different people,
Mm-hmm.
and then read their stories, read their journey, and you take what's good for you and what works for you, and you just discard what's not, and just call it a day.
Yep, that's a really good point. I want to make sure that you have time for this before we close up. Do you have anything you want to promote, a social media or a website, or I know you mentioned a book, anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, so if I'm most active on social media and most active on Instagram under my name, George underscore V underscore Gonzalez. And if you go to my bio, you can actually download a free copy of my book from Kindle Unlimited on Amazon. There's three versions, but I'm always promoting the free version because it's not about making money off my book. It's more about sharing the message of Answer the Call.
Okay. If you send me the links, I can put them. I can attach them to the videos and the audios. This will be it's video on YouTube and Spotify. I think everywhere else is audio. Um, so one thing that I usually ask people on the way out of this conversation is if you had to. I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint one thing, but if you had to kind of pinpoint maybe a couple things or maybe one of the most important lessons you've ever learned, it can be relating what we're talking to here today, just life in general, just anything, something that you would be comfortable sharing. What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons that you've ever learned in life?
I mean, there's definitely several, and each one of them is important as the next. But I want to say it's foundation. It's because everything that we build, we have to make sure that we build them on a solid foundation that will carry on way before we're not here.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because a lot of people don't know where their roots come from. A lot of people didn't ask mom or dad or grandparents or great grandparents, like, it's like, how was it when you grew up? And really grab some of those lessons and use those. Some of us, we're going to find out that there was sacrifices that our parents made, our grandparents made, but if we don't ask the questions, we can use those as a foundation. Like for me, my grandparents migrated, my grandfather migrated from Mexico to United States during World War II
Mm-hmm.
under this work agreement between the United States and Mexico called the Bracero program. When I first heard about that in my early teens, it humbled me. It made me emotional. And I made a promise that I was going to use that as the foundation of anything I'd build in, that I would build in my life. So I can quit on myself, but I'm not going to quit on the legacy of my grandfather. That I'm never going to do.
Right.
So it's important to have a solid foundation and then just stack it with other sacrifices from your grandparents, your family, your mom, dad, maybe a substance problem that a family member encountered, and just
Mm-hmm.
things that you can stack the foundation so solid that it becomes unbreakable. So regardless of what adversity and tragic event in your life, you will look back and say, no, I'm not tapping out here. I'm not quitting because I'm doing this for my grandparents, my parents, my children, and take it even further. I'm doing it for the next 3 to 5 generations of my lineage. So for that
Hmm.
reason, I'm never going to give up. So I think that would be the most powerful thing as a foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really powerful. I'm thinking about this as you're saying it, and when you think about back over previous generations, your ancestors or whatever, you think about if that's part of your motivating. I've heard people say this before. If that's part of your motivating drive, your motivating force, uh, it really causes you to see things differently. Because what you were sharing. I mean, your ancestors, all of our ancestors have certain stories about what they went through and how we got to where we're at and how our family is right here where it's at, all this kind of thing. And um, that's a powerful way to look at it, to say that your lineage, your bloodline from previous generations, it's almost like you can look at it like they're depending on you, maybe, or
Mm-hmm.
like you want to take what they did and kind of not capitalize on it, but also don't let it just be in vain. Just take that and kind of build on that and continue that legacy. Basically,
Yeah,
legacy is a good way, I think, to put
yeah,
it. But
absolutely. Legacy, because you're carrying the torch.
hmm,
The torch was handed to you. That's your legacy. But it's not just your legacy; it's your entire lineage legacy.
right,
So for us, if we find out of some this tragic event and whatever things, the sacrifices and whatnot, to not use that as our foundation to really make sure that their suffering was not in vain,
Hmm.
that would be like selfish on our parts. And I mean, it's almost like I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I don't honor my grandparents and my ancestors, like you said. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And
Yeah.
being able to, in my book, I talk about, 4 generations of my family. I talk about my grandfather's journey. I talk about my dad's journey with alcoholism, stuff like that, substance abuse. I talk about my experiences, and I talk about my daughter's successes up to the point of 2021. So I talk about 4 generations of my family with the life lessons that I talk about and share. Because, like I said, I really go personal on my journey. So if I reach 4 generations in my book, that means me reaching 3 to 5 generations of my own lineage. It's not far fetched either. And
Right.
that's how I honor my grandfather's legacy and his sacrifice by doing that.
Well, it certainly, I think it certainly helps us when what we do, we attach a purpose to that is outside of ourselves, because if you let yourself down, that's one thing. But if you have people that depend on you, whether physically or spiritually, that's a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that kind of, I think that keeps a lot of us going is knowing that we have those people, whether they're still here, whether they've moved on, we have this sort of, depending on us, and kind of what we do, I feel like affects the legacy of that, of what everyone else has done prior to us, and hopefully what the people before, after us would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I think that's something that's really big to attach to ourselves, is the fact that there are other people who will benefit by the things that we do, or who will not benefit if we choose not to do those things. Is in other words, I say this all the time too. If you focus on bettering yourself and becoming the best person you can be, if you do it, for your own personal growth and to push yourself where you're supposed to be, everybody that's connected to you should benefit from that.
Absolutely.
Everybody, your family, your friends, whoever it is, everybody should benefit. And so people say, well, I don't know, for whatever reason, people want to look at this self-improvement thing as a selfish thing, but it's like, I feel like if it's done the right way, I don't know how else to say it other than everybody who's connected to you will benefit, because we hear that you can't pour from an empty cup. How can you help somebody if you first can't help yourself? But I just think by extension, if you become the best self you can be, that's how you can help those who are connected to you.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
So, um, well, listen, man, I got to get out of here in a couple of minutes, but I do appreciate this. I appreciate your wisdom and your insight. Is there anything that we kind of didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on?
No, I think you covered a lot of the things that we wanted to talk about, and again, I just want to reiterate to the audience that believe in yourself, believe that you have a calling much bigger than you. You all have a gift, a talent, and a life's purpose, and it's our duty to expose that to ourselves and really, you know, passionately, chase it and go after it. But you have to believe in yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you just got to go inside to yourself and say, you know, if you question why me, well, why not me? Clearly you've already gone through a journey that you're worthy of the calling that's on your life. So utilize those relatable experiences and create a new path forward in your new journey.
Yep. I don't want to comment on that because I feel like if I comment on it, it's gonna take away from what you just. I love like there's some things that you say that I'm just like I want to tell you that I agree with it, but I also don't want to take away from like what you're saying, like take away from the message. Um, but yeah, man, I do appreciate your time here. I appreciate you coming to do this, and appreciate your insight. I'm gonna check out this. Did you say this book is on? It's on Amazon.
Yeah, you can download a free copy of Kindle Unlimited on Amazon. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, and it's Answer the Call. That's the book.
yeah. Answer the Call. Yes, correct. By
Okay.
Jorge Gonzalez. Yeah. So if you
Okay.
follow me on my social media platforms under my George underscore V underscore Gonzalez. So you go to my bio, you'll see there's a tab there to download a free copy of the book.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm gonna close the video out here, but I appreciate your time. Just hang out just for a second. Let me explain to you about the upload. But I definitely appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I really appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you found this content or this episode useful and intriguing, you can visit us on social media. This is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. Pure Wisdom Podcast on all social medias. You can interact with us, follow, like, and share there, and we will see you guys next time.